Deep inside a peaceful meadow far from any roads or noisy towns, a tiny firefly named Lila lived among the tall blades of moonlit grass. The meadow was a place where people rarely visited, not because it was hidden, but because it was quiet, gentle, and tucked beneath the protective shade of ancient trees. It was the kind of place only small creatures knew well, the kind of place that moved slowly and breathed softly, as if the land itself were always drifting towards sleep. To humans, this meadow might have looked like any other patch of land, dotted with flowers and swaying stems. But to Lila, who was barely the size of a sunflower seed, the meadow felt boundless. Every flower seemed as tall as a tower. Every leaf felt like a roof. Every stone was a mountain waiting to be climbed, and for a firefly as curious and gentle as Lila, this meadow was a world full of stories. Lila's tiny body glimmered with a warm, golden glow. Unlike other fireflies who blinked brightly all night, Lila's light was softer, steadier, more comforting, like a small lantern carried by someone wandering through a dream. Her wings were made of the thinnest shimmering filaments, and when she fluttered them, they made a faint, soothing whisper. She lived inside a hollowed-out tulip near the far edge of the meadow. The tulip was no longer blooming in bright spring colors, but its petals had folded inward to create a cozy little chamber. Lila lined the inside with fluffy cotton from dandelions and used a curled leaf as her blanket. Her home always smelled faintly sweet, like warm pollen and morning dew. Every night, as the moon climbed above the meadow, Lila would peek out of her tulip home. She enjoyed watching the glow of her tiny light reflect against the dewdrops resting on the petals. It made her home look like a miniature palace with jeweled walls. The tulip was snug, quiet, and safe, perfect for a creature who loved calm nights. Because Lila was a small firefly, she avoided the brightness of day. During the daylight hours, the meadow became far too warm for her delicate wings, and the sun felt too bright for her soft golden glow. Instead, Lila preferred evenings and nights when the world around her slowed down. When the winds softened to a whisper. When the stars came out gently, one by one, as though someone was lighting candles in the sky. This was when Lila felt most alive. Tonight, like every night, Lila woke with a gentle stretch. She blinked her tiny light on and off to warm it up. Outside her tulip home, she could hear the soft chirping of crickets beginning their nightly songs. She could hear the rustle of the grass as the wind moved through it like a slow ocean wave. The meadow was alive with sleepy sounds, the kind that helped woodland creatures drift peacefully into dreams, but tonight felt slightly different. As Lila emerged from her tulip, she sensed something special in the air. The wind carried a faint melody she had never heard before. It was soft, like humming, yet gentle like the sound of distant flowing water. Lila lifted herself into the cool night air, her tiny wings fluttering. She wanted to explore. The meadow was enormous from her perspective. The tall blades of grass towered over her like silent giants, their tips shimmering faintly with moonlight. When Lila flew between them, she felt as though she were gliding through tall hallways in a magical forest. She passed blooming clover heads, each one bigger than her house. She drifted by mushrooms shaped like tiny umbrellas, sheltering resting ants and beetles. Every creature had settled into its nighttime rhythm. The ladybugs curled up beneath leaves. Earthworms hid inside cool soil tunnels. A family of tiny moths warmed their wings beneath the moonlight. Lila fluttered slowly, not wanting to disturb anyone, but eager to discover where the strange melody was coming from. As she followed the sound deeper into the meadow, the melody became clearer, a soft, soothing whisper, almost like a lullaby being sung by someone far away. It felt as though the entire meadow was humming. The air itself seemed to glow. Lila felt drawn to it, the way fireflies are drawn to twilight. She passed through a cluster of bluebell flowers, each one shaped like a hanging lantern. Their petals caught her golden glow and reflected it softly. Then she flew over a patch of moss so velvety it looked like a green cloud, floating just above the earth. Eventually, she reached a clearing she had never seen before, the Whispering Meadow Circle. This was a secret place where the grass bent in a perfect circle, forming a ring around a smooth stone at the center. Lila had never been here, and she gasped softly at its beauty. The stone at the center was not ordinary. It glowed faintly with a silver shimmer, as if it held a piece of moonlight deep inside it. Dewdrops dotted its surface, sparkling like tiny stars. And the soft melody Lila had been hearing? It was coming from this stone. She hovered closer, mesmerized. The stone seemed to be alive, not in a way that frightened her, but in a way that felt ancient and wise. It pulsed gently with quiet energy, like a sleeping heartbeat. As the wind brushed past it, the dewdrops vibrated, creating that humming melody Lila had followed across the meadow. Lila landed gently on the edge of the stone. Her tiny feet felt its cool surface. The melody whispered through her wings, making them tingle. She felt safe, comforted, as though the stone welcomed her presence. "Hello?" Lila whispered softly, unsure if the stone could hear her. Her voice was quiet, barely louder than her wings. "Are you singing?" The stone didn't respond with words, but its glowing shimmer grew just a little brighter, and the melody shifted, becoming warmer, more peaceful, almost like a grandmother humming by a fireplace. Lila curled her legs beneath her and sat down, letting the cool stone soothe her tiny body. She breathed in the night air, full of moisture and calm. A soft breeze drifted through the clearing, carrying the fragrance of chamomile blossoms nearby. Lila closed her eyes for a moment, enjoying the calmness. She didn't know how long she sat there. Time in the meadow always moved slowly at night, but eventually she heard a faint rustling behind her. Turning, she saw a field mouse approaching the clearing. His fur was light gray, and his steps were gentle so as not to disturb the quiet of the night. His name was Wren, a shy but kind little mouse who often collected seeds around the meadow. Lila had seen him a few times from a distance, but she had never spoken with him directly. He paused when he noticed her sitting atop the glowing stone. "Oh," Wren whispered softly. "I didn't think anyone else knew about the Whispering Meadow Circle." Lila blinked her gentle light. "I only just found it tonight," she replied. "I followed the humming sound." Wren nodded. "Most creatures don't hear it. Only those who listen very closely." Lila tilted her tiny head. "Do you hear it every night?" "Sometimes," Wren said, sitting at the base of the stone. "My grandmother told me it's an ancient place. She said the stone hums to comfort little creatures at night, so they feel safe enough to sleep." Lila's golden light glowed a bit brighter with warmth. "That's exactly how it feels," she said. Wren curled his tail neatly around himself. "For many seasons," he continued softly, "this circle has been a resting place. Whenever I can't fall asleep, I come here and listen. It always helps." Lila smiled gently. "I think I found it at the perfect time then." The two sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the stone hum beneath the pale moonlight. The wind swirled softly around them, carrying the scent of lavender and cool night air. Above them, fireflies from distant corners of the meadow began drifting nearer, creating a soft galaxy of tiny golden lights. It was peaceful, deeply peaceful, the kind of calm that settled into the heart like a blanket being wrapped around someone who was ready for rest. After some time, Wren spoke again. "Do you live nearby?" Lila nodded. in a tulip near the western edge of the meadow. That must be a cozy home, Wren said kindly. Tulip walls hold warmth well. They do, Lila said happily. Would you like to visit sometime? I have a very soft dandelion bed. Wren smiled shyly. Maybe one night. Lila fluttered her wings slowly, enjoying the gentle breeze. Do you think the stone ever gets lonely? She wondered aloud. Wren shook his head softly. I think it waits for creatures like us. For those who enjoy soft nights and gentle stories. Lila liked that thought. It made the stone feel like a quiet guardian of the meadow, a silent friend who didn't speak, but still understood. As the night deepened, more fireflies drifted into the clearing, drawn to Lila's soft glow and the humming melody. Their lights flickered gently, creating waves of golden sparkles across the clearing. It looked as if the stars themselves had descended to rest among the grass. Lila took a slow breath. This is the most peaceful place I've ever seen. Wren nodded. It always is at night. Eventually, the first hints of dawn brushed against the sky, turning the darkness into a soft indigo. The fireflies began to dim their lights, preparing to rest. The melody of the stone softened, becoming quieter, gentler, as though even it was preparing for sleep. Lila rose from the stone. I should head home before the sun wakes. Wren stood as well. I should too. The two exchanged a small, warm smile, the beginning of a new friendship, and then Lila fluttered back through the grass. Her light glowed faintly, guiding her through the quiet meadow as the world around her hushed and settled. When she reached her tulip home, Lila slipped inside. Her dandelion bed felt especially soft tonight. She curled beneath her leaf blanket and dimmed her light until only a faint golden glow remained. Outside, the meadow grew still. The stone's melody faded into silence. And wrapped in warmth and comfort, Lila drifted slowly into a peaceful, dreamy sleep, wondering what quiet adventure tomorrow night might bring. The next night arrived softly, like a quiet sigh across the meadow. All day, gray clouds had been slowly drifting in, covering the sky like a soft blanket. The sun, usually bright and golden over the wide field, had stayed hidden behind them, turning the day cool and dim. For many creatures, it was a perfect day for resting. The air was moist, and the scent of wet earth lay gently over the grass inside her tulip home. Lila the little firefly stirred as evening approached. Even before she awoke fully, she could hear the gentle patter of raindrops tapping on the petals around her. It sounded like someone lightly drumming their fingers on a wooden table in a slow, sleepy rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. The sound was soothing. Lila slowly blinked her soft golden light, brightening it just enough to see the inside of her cozy tulip. Her dandelion fluff bed had held onto the warmth of the day, and her curled leaf blanket felt cool and fresh from the dampness in the air. She stayed curled up for a few extra moments, listening to the rain and letting herself wake up slowly. When she finally stretched her tiny legs and wings, she felt calm and rested. The air seeping into her tulip home was cool and humid, perfect for a firefly who loved gentle nights. Lila fluttered toward the opening of her tulip and peeked outside. The meadow had transformed. Every blade of grass wore tiny beads of raindrops, like strings of clear pearls. Flowers were bowed just slightly from the weight of the water on their petals. The soil was dark and rich, and here and there little puddles had formed, reflecting the faint light of the rising moon. In the distance, the sky still rumbled softly, but the heavy rain had already softened into a misty drizzle. It was a rainy night kind of magic, the kind that made everything quiet, clean, and slow. Lila stepped out of her tulip and let the cool droplets touch her tiny feet. She fluttered her wings gently, careful not to fly too fast in the moist air. The raindrops that clung to the air felt like floating glass beads around her. Each one caught her glow for a moment, then let it go. She loved nights like this. The brighter flashes of lightning had passed long before Lila woke up. Now the sky held only faint distant glows beyond the thick clouds, barely seen through the silver mist. The thunder, too, had softened to low, faraway murmurs that sounded more like a sleepy giant turning over in its dreams than a storm. Lila listened carefully. The crickets were quieter than usual tonight. Many of them preferred to hide under leaves when it rained. The grasshoppers were tucked away too, sheltering beneath thick stems. But the frogs, who lived near the little pond at the far edge of the meadow, were delighted. Their voices floated through the damp air in slow, simple songs, filling the night with a soft, peaceful chorus. Lila smiled to herself, her light glowing warmly. Rainy nights always made the meadow feel smaller, cozier, more like a shared bedroom where all the creatures were tucking in together. She thought of the whispering meadow circle and the shimmering stone she had discovered the night before. She remembered how its soft humming had soothed her. She also remembered Wren, the shy little mouse who had sat beside her in quiet understanding. Just thinking about that place made her feel calm inside. I wonder what the stone sounds like in the rain, Lila whispered to herself as the question filled her with gentle curiosity. She floated a little higher, careful not to brush against the wet petals above her, and began to drift forward through the meadow. The grass surrounding her tulip bent slightly from the moisture, creating arched green tunnels as she passed through. Each blade carried tiny droplets of water, and every time the wind moved, the droplets shivered and slid down, falling to the earth in soft, almost soundless taps. Lila moved slowly, gliding between stems and under drooping flowers. A daisy, heavy with rain, leaned its white petals over her, and a few stray drops landed on her head and back. They felt cool and refreshing. She giggled softly and shook them off, her light flickering gently. As she flew deeper into the meadow, she noticed the world around her seemed muffled. The rain dampened loud noises, wrapping everything in a gentle hush. Even the usual rustling of small animals seemed quieter. It wasn't that the meadow was empty, it was simply resting. Lila liked this kind of quiet. It made it easier to notice small things. She passed a cluster of clover where a family of tiny beetles huddled under a wide leaf, their shells shining wet and dark. Nearby, a snail slowly moved across a smooth stone, leaving behind a faint shimmering trail that glowed briefly when her light brushed over it. Underneath a mushroom that looked like a tiny umbrella, two ladybugs slept side by side, their little legs tucked beneath them. No one seemed frightened. Just peaceful. Just calm. Lila continued toward the circle, guided by memory rather than sound this time. The humming melody of the stone was faint tonight, hidden beneath the hush of the rain and the distant croaks of frogs. She knew it was there, though, like a quiet heartbeat she had already grown used to. When she finally emerged into the whispering meadow circle, she drew in a soft breath. The stone at the center was beautiful in the rain. Its smooth surface was covered in tiny droplets, each holding a reflection of her golden glow. The faint silver shimmer from within it seemed stronger tonight, as if the stone was enjoying the cool touch of the rain. The grass around the circle bent outward, heavy with water, forming a natural wall that made the place feel even more hidden and protected. Lila floated slowly toward the stone. As she approached, she noticed something else, a small, familiar shape curled up at its base. It was Wren, the little mouse. His fur was damp near the tips, but his tiny body was nestled beneath a curved leaf that acted as a roof. His eyes were closed, and he was breathing deeply and evenly. His tail was wrapped around himself, and his front paws rested gently against the stone as if holding onto a soft pillow. He was fast asleep. Lila smiled gently. She dimmed her glow a little so she wouldn't wake him and settled softly on top of the stone, holding her legs beneath her. Even though Wren was sleeping, his presence comforted her. It made her feel less alone in the vast, rainy meadow. She could feel the faint hum of the stone beneath her feet, different tonight, but still calm. Instead of a clear melody, it vibrated slowly, like a soft, endless exhale. Lila closed her eyes and listened carefully. The rain fell around them in a steady rhythm. The frog's distant chorus rose and fell like slow waves. The wind brushed past in cool, gentle breaths. And beneath it all, the stone pulsed with a soft, steady song that Lila didn't hear with her ears as much as she felt with her whole tiny body. It felt like the meadow itself was whispering, "Rest, rest, everything is all right." Lila let her wings relax completely. She didn't need to move or explore or even think very much. She just needed to sit and breathe and be. Minutes slipped by, or maybe much longer. Nights like this blurred softly together, with no hurry and no ticking clocks. Lila opened her eyes every now and then to watch raindrops roll down the stone in slow trails, merging and splitting, always finding their way down to the earth below. At one point, Wren stirred in his sleep. He shifted slightly and mumbled something too quiet to hear. His ears flicked as a stray raindrop slid off the leaf above him and landed gently beside his nose. He wrinkled it, then settled again, even more snugly against the stone. Lila's heart felt warm. She thought about how many little creatures, just like them, were tucked into their own safe places in the meadow, under leaves, inside burrows, beneath bark, inside flowers, all trusting that the night would hold them gently. She thought of her own tulip home, waiting quietly for her return. After a long while, the rain began to lighten even more. The heavy clouds slowly thinned, and a pale, silvery glow appeared behind them. Somewhere deep in the sky, the moon was rising higher, trying to peek through the shifting cover. The raindrops falling around the clearing became smaller and less frequent, turning from a steady patter into a soft, occasional tap. Lila opened her eyes again and looked up through a gap in the clouds. She caught a glimpse of a few stars sparkling faintly. Her golden light reflected in the raindrops that still clung to the grass tips. For a moment, it was hard to tell what was sky and what was earth. It all blended together into a dreamy blur of shines and glows. She glanced down at Wren once more. A thought rose in her mind, gentle but strong. "I want to help the meadow feel calm too," she whispered softly to herself. "Just like the stone does." Her own light was small, she knew that. It wasn't as bright as some other fireflies. It didn't flicker in sharp bursts or dance rapidly through the air like the sparkling displays she sometimes saw near the pond. Her glow was more like a lantern than a flash, but as she watched Wren sleeping peacefully beside the stone, she realized something important. A small, steady light was sometimes exactly what the night needed. Very slowly, Lila brightened her glow, not to its fullest, but enough that the clearing felt wrapped in a soft, golden warmth. The raindrops on the stone and the grass caught the light and shimmered faintly, turning the circle into a small island of calm in the middle of the damp meadow. She didn't move. She didn't flutter. She simply sat and glowed, letting her light be a quiet presence. She imagined other tiny creatures in the grass nearby, maybe a sleepy moth finding its way back to a leaf, or a small cricket searching for its burrow, or a shy spider pausing beneath a stem. If they looked toward the clearing, they would see her golden glow and know that there was a peaceful place nearby. A place where nothing chased, nothing frightened, nothing rushed, just a firefly, a stone, a mouse, and a night full of soft rain. Time passed with the same slow, drifting feeling of a lullaby. Lila didn't know how long she sat there, but her thoughts grew softer, like feathers settling gently on the ground. Her worries, which had once fluttered around her like restless moths, worries about being small, about having a dimmer light, about being alone in a big meadow, seemed far away now. Here, in the whispering meadow circle, size didn't matter. Brightness didn't matter. Loudness didn't matter. Only softness did, only calm. Eventually, the last few raindrops fell, and the clouds parted just enough to let more moonlight spill into the clearing. The stone zone shimmered dim slightly, as though it too was growing sleepy. Lila noticed Wren beginning to wake. His whiskers twitched first, then his ears, and finally his eyelids fluttered open. That he blinked up at the soft golden glow above him and saw Lila sitting on the stone, shining gently. "Oh," he whispered, his voice still thick with sleep. "You're here." Lila nodded. "I didn't want to disturb you. You looked very peaceful." Wren glanced around, noticing how the clearing glowed warmly in the blend of Lila's light and the moon's silver. He smiled, a little shy but very genuine. "I had a very calm dream," he said slowly. "It felt like someone was watching over the meadow." "Maybe it was the stone," Lila suggested softly. Wren tilted his head. "Maybe it was you. Your light is very gentle tonight." Lila's glow flickered, almost like a blush. "I just wanted the meadow to feel safe," she admitted. Wren nodded. "It does," he said simply. "Sometimes the night feels big and dark. But your light feels like a small lamp in a window. It tells me I'm not alone." Lila's heart swelled with quiet warmth. No one had ever said something like that to her before. "Thank you, Wren," she whispered. The two of them sat together for a little while longer, listening to the last drops of water slip from petal to soil. The frogs' songs softened. The crickets, sensing that the rain had ended, began to chirp again, not loudly, but with a slow, steady rhythm that blended with the hum of the stone and the stillness of the meadow. Eventually, Lila knew it was time to return home. Her wings felt relaxed, her heart felt calm, and though she wasn't quite sleepy yet, she could feel rest quietly approaching. "I should go back to my tulip," she said gently. Wren nodded. "And I to my burrow. The ground will be soft and cool tonight." They shared a quiet look of understanding, not needing many words. The meadow had wrapped them both in calm, and now it was time to carry that calm back to their homes. Lila lifted herself slowly from the stone and hovered in front of Wren for a moment. "Good night," she said softly. "If you can't sleep, you can visit my tulip someday. I'll leave my light on." Wren smiled, his eyes warm and kind. "Good night, Lila. And thank you for glowing." With that, he turned and padded gently away through the damp grass, disappearing into the shadows of the meadow, heading toward his own hidden burrow. Lila watched him go, then turned and took one last look at the whispering meadow circle. The stone shimmered faintly, as if giving her a quiet nod. She felt that the meadow itself had thanked her in its own wordless way. Then, with small, unhurried movements, Lila flew back toward her tulip home. The grass no longer felt like towering walls, but like friendly pillars guiding her path. The dewdrops on the leaves winked at her as she passed. The sky above was a soft mix of silver and dark blue, with stars slowly reappearing now that the clouds had thinned. When she finally slipped inside her tulip, the familiar scent of pollen and dandelion fluff greeted her. She dimmed her glow little by little until only the faintest hint of gold remained, just enough to see her bed. She curled into her soft dandelion nest, pulled her leaf blanket over herself, and took a slow, deep breath. Outside, the meadow hummed quietly with sleep. Inside, her tulip felt like a tiny, safe lantern in the night. As her eyes grew heavy, Lila thought of the stone, of the rain, of Wren's sleepy smile, and of her own gentle light glowing over the clearing. "I may be small," she murmured softly, already halfway into a dream, "but I can still make the night feel just a little bit calmer." And with that tender thought nestled in her heart, Lila drifted peacefully to sleep, ready for whatever quiet, glowing adventure the next night might bring. The following night arrived with a silky quietness that wrapped the entire meadow like a soft blanket. The rain from the night before had washed every blade of grass clean, leaving the world fresh and glistening. The soil was cool and damp, the flowers looked brighter, and gentle breezes carried the sweet scent of night-blooming blossoms across the sleepy field. Inside her tulip home, Lila the little firefly stirred from her rest. Her dandelion bed was still slightly warm, and her leaf blanket curled perfectly around her small body. Before opening her eyes fully, she listened. She could hear the soft rustle of the wind moving through the fresh grass. She could hear the faint clicking sound of a cricket sharpening its wings. She could hear a distant owl letting out a slow, muffled hoot. The night was peaceful, very peaceful, the quiet sort of night that made even the stars seem slow and relaxed. Lila opened her eyes gently, and her glow flickered to life in a soft, golden pulse. She stretched her wings, letting them warm up with tiny fluttering motions. The tulip petals around her still held a few leftover raindrops that sparkled when her light touched them. Tonight, the air felt different, not like rain, not like wind, not like the humming magic of the whispering meadow circle. It felt expectant, like something was slowly awakening, or maybe waiting to begin. Lila stepped out of her tulip doorway and fluttered into the cool, moist air. The meadow looked like a world made of gemstones. Every leaf, every petal, every stem wore little silver droplets that caught her golden glow and turned it into tiny stars scattered across the grass. The moon hung low in the sky tonight, round and glowing with a pale blue hue. It cast soft shadows across the meadow floor, making everything look like it was part of a gentle dream. Lila drifted a little higher, letting the breeze carry her forward. She didn't yet know where she wanted to go. Not the strawberry patch. Not the pond. Not even the whispering meadow circle, though she knew it always comforted her. Tonight, she wanted to explore without a plan. To drift wherever the night carried her. As she flew slowly above the grass, her soft light brushed over tiny dewdrops, making them shimmer. She passed over a patch of chamomile flowers that had opened just for the night. Their white petals glowed faintly in the moonlight, and their calming scent drifted into the air like a warm whisper. Lila breathed it in. She felt the calm settle deeper into her tiny body. After a few moments, she passed near a cluster of mushrooms shaped like tiny houses. She noticed something unusual here tonight. Several beetles huddled close together, their little antennae twitching excitedly. Lila drifted lower. "Good evening," she whispered, her voice as gentle as a breeze moving over soft moss. The beetles turned toward her. One of them, a round beetle with a shiny blue shell, lifted its little legs in greeting. "Oh, Lila," he said quietly. "Are you going to the gathering too?" "The gathering?" Lila repeated softly, puzzled. "What gathering?" The beetles exchanged looks, as though surprised she didn't already know. The shiny blue beetle stepped closer. "It's the night of the tiny lights," he explained. "It only happens once every few seasons." Lila tilted her small head. "What is it?" Another beetle, this one deep green with tiny golden spots, answered. "All the glowing creatures of the meadow gather near the old willow tree and float together in a slow dance under the moon. It's a celebration of peace. A celebration of light." Lila blinked her warm glow, surprised and fascinated. She had never heard of such a gathering before. The blue beetle continued. "You must come. Every firefly is welcome. Every small creature is." Lila's little heart fluttered with excitement and nervousness. "Oh," she whispered. I didn't know there was such a thing. Is it far?" "Not far at all," the green beetle chirped gently. "Just follow the moon path. You'll see the glow when you get close." They all wiggled their antennae in a friendly goodbye and scurried off beneath a leaf. Lila hovered where she was, thinking. A gathering of glowing creatures, a dance under the moon, a celebration meant for tiny beings like her. She felt her glow flicker with curiosity and hope. I think I'd like to see it, she whispered to herself with slow, careful wing beats. She rose into the air and turned toward the eastern edge of the meadow, where the moonlight fell most brightly. This part of the meadow was unfamiliar to her. She glided over tall grasses that swayed like soft green curtains. She passed flowers shaped like stars and bells. She drifted over smooth stones that still held the warmth of the previous day. As she flew, she noticed something, a faint glow ahead. Not moonlight, not her own golden shimmer, something different. Softer, multicolored, like pastel lights drifting in the air. She approached slowly. The closer she came, the more she realized she wasn't imagining it. The entire area near the old willow tree was glowing with gentle blue, green, lavender, and warm yellow lights. When she finally reached the willow tree clearing, she gasped softly. The scene before her was breathtaking. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of tiny glowing creatures drifted in slow, circling motions around the old tree. Their glow shimmered like floating lanterns, moving in peaceful rhythms. Some lights were warm and golden. Others were cool and blue. Some flickered softly like heartbeat pulses. Others shone in steady streams, baby fireflies learning to glow, mature fireflies glowing with full brightness. Soft glowing moths with shimmering wings, tiny insects with pastel-colored lights beneath their shells, even a few glowing spores drifting from mushrooms like floating stars. The old willow tree stood at the center of it all, an ancient giant with long, sweeping branches that touched the ground. The leaves glowed faintly silver in the moonlight, shimmering softly as they swayed. It was as though the tree itself watched over the gathering like a gentle guardian. Lila felt her tiny body fill with awe. She had never seen anything so peaceful, so magical. She drifted closer but moved slowly, not wanting to disturb anyone. A soft voice suddenly spoke near her left. "Lila?" She turned. Into her surprise, saw Wren, the little mouse, peeking out from behind a mushroom near the edge of the clearing. His gray fur looked fluffy in the moonlit glow, and his whiskers twitched with excitement. "Wren," Lila whispered happily. "You're here too?" Wren nodded. "I always come to the night of tiny lights. My grandmother used to bring me when I was small. I never dance with the glowing creatures. I can't glow, of course, but I like to watch. It feels like the whole meadow is dreaming together." Lila's heart warmed. Wren stepped closer, careful not to disturb the moss. "You should join them," he encouraged softly. "Your light it's very peaceful. I think you belong in this dance." Lila felt shy suddenly. "I don't glow as brightly as other fireflies," she whispered. Wren shook his head. "Brightness doesn't matter here. The gathering isn't about shining the strongest. It's about glowing together." Lila looked back at the circle of tiny lights drifting through the air. The glowing creatures moved like slow-moving stars, swirling in a gentle pattern, following the rhythm of the willow leaves swaying above them. She felt her wings lift without thinking. "Maybe I'll try," she whispered softly. Wren smiled warmly. "I'll be right here watching." With a calming breath, Lila drifted toward the swirling lights. At first, she stayed near the outer edge, just observing. She watched the soft glows rise and fall like breathing. She watched fireflies move in slow spirals, glowing brighter as they passed beneath the moonlight. She watched tiny glowing spores drift lazily, carried by the faint breeze. Then she took a step forward, and another, and very slowly, she joined the circle. Her glow flickered nervously at first, but gradually, it steadied. The glowing creatures made room for her effortlessly, as if expecting her. A gentle blue moth drifted beside her, its wings glowing like pale ocean waves. A tiny pastel beetle floated near her, pulsing warm lavender light in calm intervals. Lila felt something shift inside her. The dance wasn't really a dance. It was more like floating together in perfect peace. The lights around her rose and fell in gentle waves. Some creatures swirled near the willow branches, letting the long shimmering leaves brush over them like soft curtains. Others drifted close to the ground, glowing faintly over the damp moss. Lila moved slowly, keeping her light steady. Her glow reflected in the dewdrops on the willow leaves, creating tiny mirrors of gold around her. Then, something magical happened. As Lila relaxed into the movement, her glow began to brighten slowly, steadily, more than she had ever glowed before. Not bright like a spark, but warm like a lantern held by gentle hands. The moth beside her drifted closer, its wings humming softly. "You have a beautiful glow," it whispered. Lila's tiny heart fluttered. She continued drifting in calm circles, her light becoming part of the meadow's night sky. Wren watched from the edge of the clearing, his eyes wide with awe and pride. Her little lantern-like glow lit up the air above him. He whispered quietly to himself, "She was meant for this." The dance continued for a long time, guided by the soft swaying of the willow and the calm rise of moonlight. The glowing creatures moved not with urgency but with deep peace, as if the night itself were breathing through them. Eventually, as the moon drifted higher and the stars turned slowly overhead, Lila felt a peaceful tiredness settling into her wings. Many of the tiny glowing creatures were beginning to drift away as well, returning to their homes scattered across the meadow. Lila floated gently out of the circle and back toward the willow roots, where Wren waited. He smiled as she approached. "You shine beautifully," he said softly. Lila's glow dimmed in a sleepy blush. "I didn't know I could glow like that," she admitted. "Sometimes," Wren replied gently, "we discover new parts of ourselves only when the night is calm enough." Lila settled down on a smooth stone beside him. She felt warm inside, not just from glowing, but from belonging. "Do the tiny lights gather often?" she asked. "Not often at all," Wren said. "Only when the sky feels just right and the meadow is quiet enough to hear its own heartbeat." Lila took in those words like a lullaby. She hoped there would be another gathering someday. But even if it took many seasons, she knew she would be ready. After a while, Wren stood and stretched. "I should return to my burrow before the dew becomes too heavy," he said. "I should go home too," Lila whispered. They exchanged a gentle goodnight and went their separate paths through the peaceful meadow. As Lila returned to her tulip, she felt the night lingering softly around her, quiet, glowing, full of stars. She curled into her bed, wrapped her leaf blanket around herself, and let her light dim to the faintest warm ember. Her final thought before sleep touched her was simple and soft. "I may be small, but together, tiny lights make the meadow shine." And with that, she drifted into a deep, peaceful sleep, her glow pulsing gently like a small star dreaming. The morning after the night of tiny lights, the meadow glowed with a soft, fresh brightness. The willow leaves held onto the last of the dew, and tiny droplets sparkled wherever the sun gently touched the grass. Though daytime was never Lila's favorite, the meadow felt calmer than usual, as if it were still dreaming from the night before. Inside her tulip home, Lila, the little firefly, slept peacefully long after most creatures had already awakened. Her glowing body, now dim and resting, rose and fell with the soft rhythm of her breaths. The warmth of the night's dance still lingered in her wings, and even as she slept, she felt wrapped in a warm sense of belonging. When Lila finally stirred, the sun was already dipping low toward the horizon, tinting the meadow in soft gold and rose colors. The tulip walls around her glowed gently, filtering in warm, sleepy light. She blinked, letting her glow warm up slowly, then stretched her tiny legs and wings. She remembered the night before with a tender flutter inside her chest, the glowing creatures drifting like stars, the willow tree swaying in long silver ribbons, Wren's gentle smile at the edge of the clearing, her own glow shining brighter than she ever believed it could. A soft, happy warmth filled her as she stepped out of her tulip doorway. The evening air was cool and sweet, carrying the smell of damp moss and the faint scent of chamomile blossoms. The meadow grass swayed lightly, whispering tiny secrets through their leaves. Lila fluttered her wings, excited for another night of exploring, but tonight, something felt different. There was a feeling in the air, not urgent, not frightening, but curious and mysterious, like a soft bell ringing far away. As she glided above the meadow floor, Lila noticed tiny shimmering dust particles floating in the air. They glowed faintly silver, pale and cool, unlike the warm gold glow she carried. At first she thought they were leftover spores from glowing mushrooms, but the dust drifted in delicate trails, twisting gently like ribbons. It looked like a path. A trail of soft silver light leading somewhere deeper in the meadow. Lila's curiosity awakened instantly. She fluttered closer. As she followed the silver dust through the grass, she began to hear something, a faint rustling sound, delicate and rhythmic, as though something with soft wings was gently brushing against the air. Lila's glow flickered with intrigue. She continued following the shimmering path until she reached a part of the meadow she had never seen before, a hidden grove tucked between tall stems and low-hanging branches of night-blooming flowers. Here, the moonlight filtered down in dappled pools, turning the air into a soft tapestry of shadow and glow, and there, resting atop a wide leaf, was a moth unlike any she'd seen before. Its wings were large and shaped like gently curved petals. They shimmered with a silver glow so soft it seemed like moonlight woven into delicate silk. The patterns on the wings looked like rivers of tiny stars, and each slow movement of the wings released more of the drifting silver dust that Lila had followed. The creature lifted its head slowly and looked at her with calm, knowing eyes. "You must be Lila," the moth said in a soft, melodic whisper. Lila blinked, startled. "Why, you know my name?" The moth smiled, or at least, the soft curl of her mouth resembled a smile. "I do. The meadow speaks of you. And I saw your light at the gathering." Lila's wings fluttered in a shy tremble. "Oh, I didn't realize anyone noticed me." "How could I not?" the moth replied gently. "Your glow is one of warmth, not brightness. And warmth is what the meadow needs most." Lila felt her heart flutter again, this time with shy gratitude. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. The moth folded her wings gracefully. "I am Selene," she said. "A silver-winged moth. We moths of my kind only awaken during nights when the moon touches the earth with calm. My kind lives far from most creatures, in the hidden parts of the meadow. But sometimes," she paused as a soft breeze brushed her wings, "sometimes the meadow calls us forth." Lila drifted a little closer. "The meadow calls?" Selene nodded. "The meadow is alive in ways small creatures rarely notice. It sings. It remembers. It whispers through the leaves and stones. Some nights, the meadow senses a change. A new light rising. A new voice. A new balance." Her silver eyes rested softly on Lila, and this time, the meadow whispered your name. Lila felt a warm rush sweep through her. "Me? But I'm just a small firefly. I don't glow very brightly, and I've only just begun exploring the meadow." Selene lifted a wing, releasing a small cloud of shimmering silver dust that floated gently between them. "Bright lights dazzle and fade," she murmured. "But steady lights endure. You have a light that calms others. A light that comforts. A light that brings peace to places that have forgotten it." Lila felt her glow brighten slightly, embarrassed yet touched. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do," she whispered. "Nothing more than what you already do," Selene replied. "Glow gently. Listen deeply. And help guide other tiny hearts when the night grows uncertain." Lila frowned softly. "Is something uncertain?" Selene settled down on the leaf, her wings folding like a silk curtain. "There are whispers," she said, "that the northern part of the meadow is restless. The wind changes direction there too quickly. The night creatures feel uneasy. It's nothing dangerous, but the meadow senses imbalance. Lila tilted her head. Imbalance? You will understand more in time, Selene said kindly. Tonight, I only wish to give you something. She lifted her wings, revealing a tiny, glowing seed resting on the leaf beneath her. It shimmered with silver light, soft but unmistakably magical. Lila drifted closer. What is it? This, Selene whispered, is a moonseed. It holds the memory of peaceful light. If ever you find yourself in a place where darkness feels too heavy, or when another creature feels lost, you may release a small part of this seed. It will guide the heart that needs guidance. Lila stared in awe. I don't know if I can carry something so important. Selene smiled gently. You already carry something far more important, your own light. This seed is merely a reminder of what is possible. Carefully, she nudged the moonseed with her wing. It floated upward like a tiny glowing bubble. Lila extended her legs, and the seed drifted down into her grasp. It felt warm, like holding a tiny heartbeat. Lila held it close to her chest. Thank you, Selene, she whispered. The silver moth nodded. Use it when the night asks for calm. Will I see you again? Lila asked softly. Selene's wings shimmered. Perhaps. Silver-winged moths appear only when the moon and meadow speak in harmony. But know this, the meadow watches over you, and your light is never alone. A soft breeze swept through the grove, lifting Selene's wings slowly. With a graceful motion, she rose into the air, leaving behind trails of shimmering dust. Her wings caught the moonlight, turning her into a floating ribbon of silver that drifted among the branches before disappearing into the deeper shadows of the meadow. Lila stayed perfectly still, watching the silver moth vanish into the quiet darkness. She clutched the moonseed gently in her tiny legs. It pulsed with faint silver light, matching the rhythm of her own warm glow. Slowly, she drifted upward and left the grove, following the soft breeze back into familiar parts of the meadow. The grass shifted gently beneath her, and the flowers swayed in delicate rhythms as if bowing in greeting. As she flew past the chamomile patch, she noticed the petals seemed to glow more warmly than usual, as though the meadow itself was welcoming her back. She passed the smooth stones where she sometimes rested. She drifted over the moss where the frogs gathered. She glided past the tall stems that led to the whispering meadow circle. Everything felt both familiar and new. When she reached the whispering meadow circle, the stone glowed faintly, softer than usual but with a warm, steady pulse. Lila drifted close and placed her tiny feet upon its smooth surface. The stone hummed gently beneath her, as if acknowledging the moonseed she now carried. Lila felt a calm spread through her body, a calm deeper and more complete than anything she had felt before. After a few peaceful moments, she lifted herself into the air once more and headed toward her tulip home. The night sky above her sparkled with faint stars, and the moon hovered like a silver lantern watching over her. Inside her tulip, Lila placed the moonseed in a soft petal-lined nook beside her bed. She curled up in her dandelion nest and pulled her leaf blanket close. Her glow dimmed slowly, settling into a warm, soft pulse. As she drifted into sleep, she whispered to the seed, I'll use you when someone needs light. And with that promise, Lila closed her eyes and let dreams carry her gently into a peaceful rest, unaware of how soon the meadow would call upon the moonseed. The following night drifted into the meadow quietly, as if it were tiptoeing between the blades of grass. The sky was dark and clear, sprinkled with sleepy stars, and the moon shone like a soft pale lantern above the land. The meadow seemed peaceful at first glance, but deep beneath the quiet, something felt unsettled. As the evening deepened, Lila the little firefly awoke from her cozy tulip home. She blinked her warm golden glow, stretched her tiny legs, and fluttered her delicate wings. But But the moment she stepped out of her tulip, she sensed something unusual. The air felt heavier. The wind carried faint trembles. The grass seemed to sway in uneven rhythms. The meadow was whispering, not the calm whisper she loved, but something restless. Lila drifted upward, hovering above the grass to get a better sense of the night. The usual soft hum of nocturnal life was missing. The crickets chirped irregularly, their timing off. The frogs croaked but then fell silent, as though pausing to listen to something only they could hear. A tiny shiver ran through her wings. She remembered Selene's gentle words. The northern meadow was restless. Tonight, the meadow wasn't simply restless, it was calling. Lila's glow brightened with determination. She knew she needed to understand what was happening, even if she was only a small firefly. She fluttered through the grass, her soft light brushing over dewdrops and tiny petals. As she flew deeper into the meadow, she began to hear something faint, a low, trembling sound, not loud, but constant, like a creature sighing in fear. She followed the sound until she reached the northern part of the meadow, a part she rarely visited. The grass here grew taller and denser. The shadows stretched longer, and the moonlight struggled to reach the ground, but that wasn't what startled her. At the heart of the northern meadow, she saw creatures gathered in confusion: field mice, beetles, snails, tiny moths, all huddled beneath leaves and stones, trembling softly. Even the fireflies looked frightened, clinging to low branches instead of floating freely, and in the center of them all sat a young mole, his body shivering, his tiny paws clutching his head. His name was Pip, and though his eyes were small and rarely open, he was a kind creature who usually spent his nights digging soft tunnels. But tonight he looked overwhelmed and lost. Lila drifted closer. "Pip," she whispered gently. The little mole lifted his head slightly. His eyes blinked, struggling to focus. "Oh, Lila," he said in a trembling voice. "The meadow, it's too loud." He pressed his paws over his ears again. "I can hear every root, every worm, every shifting stone beneath the ground. It's all mixed together. I can't tell what's real anymore." Lila gasped softly. Moles had sensitive hearing, able to listen to the soil beneath them, but something tonight had made the underground world chaotic. She fluttered nearer, letting her glow brighten just a bit to soothe him. "What happened, Pip?" she asked gently. Pip shivered. The ground, it rumbled earlier. Not like thunder, deeper. It shook the tunnels. The worms panicked and ran into the roots. Everything moved so fast. And now I can't calm down. I can't tell which sounds are close and which are far. His voice cracked. He looked so small, so overwhelmed. Around them, the other meadow creatures whispered with worry. "What do we do? Is the meadow changing? Will the tunnels collapse? Will Pip be okay?" Lila's tiny heart tightened. She remembered Selene's silver moonseed, the one that rested safely inside her tulip home, but she had left it behind. "I need to get the moonseed," she whispered to herself with urgency in her wings. She turned around and flew as quickly as her gentle body allowed. The grass brushed against her legs as she darted past flowers and leaves. Her glow flickered with determination, guiding her path like a tiny lantern. When she reached her tulip home, she entered quickly, retrieved the glowing moonseed from its soft petal cradle, and held it close to her chest. It pulsed softly, as if sensing the need for its light. "I'm coming, Pip," Lila whispered. She flew back through the meadow, the moonseed glowing brighter with each wing beat. When she returned to the northern meadow clearing, the creatures stirred with a flicker of hope. "She brought something. What is that light? It looks like moonlight." Lila drifted toward Pip and hovered in front of him. The little mole blinked, his tiny eyes following the silver glow. What is that?" he asked weakly. Lila held the moonseed gently. "It's something given to me to help when the night feels too heavy," she said softly. "Selene told me it can guide lost hearts." Pip trembled. But I hear too much. Everything is so loud. I know, Lila whispered. That's why I want to share the moonseed's light with you. She pressed the moonseed gently to Pip's fur near his chest. The moment it touched him, the seed released a soft, shimmering pulse, a glow so gentle and calm that even the restless grass seemed to hush. The silver light flowed into Pip like a wave of warmth. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The trembling in his paws softened, his breathing grew steadier, his tiny body relaxed, as though wrapped in a warm blanket. Around them, the meadow creatures watched silently, mesmerized. Pip finally opened his eyes, and for the first time that night, he didn't look afraid. The sounds, he whispered. They're not tangled anymore. They're soft, quiet, like whispers again. Lila glowed with relief. The moonseed helps calm confusion. It brings clarity. Pip let out a small sigh, curling into a ball of comfort. Thank you, Lila. I don't know what would have happened without you. Lila felt warm inside, not from glowing, but from something deeper, the feeling of truly helping another creature. The meadow around them seemed to release a collective breath. The crickets resumed their steady chirping, the frogs croaked softly, the grass swayed gently, no longer chaotic. The imbalance Selene had spoken of was easing. One by one, the meadow creatures drifted closer to Lila, their tiny eyes shining with gratitude. You helped the meadow tonight. Your light is gentle but strong. You brought calm where there was fear. You are the heart of the night. Lila's glow brightened shyly. I didn't do it alone, she said softly. Selene gave me the moonseed. And all of you believed in me. Wren, who had been hiding behind a cluster of flowers in worry, rushed forward and hugged her gently with his tiny paws. I knew your light mattered, he whispered warmly. You were always meant to help the meadow. Lila hummed softly, resting in the warmth of friendship and safety. The night had been frightening, but it had also revealed something important. Even the smallest light, when shared with kindness, could calm an entire meadow. As the moon began to drift lower in the sky, Lila looked around the northern meadow. The creatures were peaceful again, some settling down to sleep, others returning to their burrows or leaves. Pip curled comfortably under a broad petal, his breathing steady and slow. Lila fluttered to a small rock near Wren and rested her wings. The feverish energy of the night had faded, leaving only soft breaths and gentle sounds. Wren sat beside her, his tail curled neatly around him. You were brave tonight, he said. Lila shook her head lightly. I was just glowing. And that, Wren whispered, was exactly what the meadow needed. The two watched as dawn approached, bringing faint silver lines across the sky. The meadow grew sleepy, and Lila's tiny body began to feel heavy with rest. She drifted back to her tulip home, her wings slow but calm. Inside, she placed the moonseed, now dim and peaceful, beside her soft bed. It no longer pulsed with urgency. The meadow was at peace again. Lila curled into her dandelion nest and pulled her leaf blanket close. As she began to drift into sleep, she whispered to the moonseed, thank you. I'll be ready if the meadow ever calls again. Her glow dimmed to the faintest warm ember, a quiet star inside a tulip, and she fell into a deep, gentle sleep, knowing the meadow rested peacefully around her, safe under her small but steady light.